So just arrived from all the way from China is what I hope will be the air compressor pulley. It's very well packaged, that much I can say. And to be honest, it did not take too long to get here. So that's the outer circlip. In this video, we're going to be fitting an AC or air conditioning pulley on this Mercedes SL55, and we'll be discussing whether or not you should use Chinese sites such as Alibaba, AliExpress, Temu to fit cheap auto parts to your Mercedes. If you have the money, or you're a garage and your customers have the money, then the advice would always be to buy the OEM part directly from the manufacturer, be that Mercedes, Audi, BMW, etc. And indeed, sometimes you'll find that buying parts directly from Mercedes is actually cheaper than going along to eBay or other suppliers. In the case of older cars, such as this SL55, which is over 20 years old now, some parts are no longer available from Mercedes, such as the ABC pump. So if you need a new pump, you will have no choice other than to go along to a country like Poland, where they supply remanufactured pumps, or China, where they have a whole host of remanufactured ABC pumps. The pros of buying cheap parts from China are that you will save yourself a fortune. For example, the air con pulley for this particular car will cost you something like £10 or £12 from Alibaba, or £50 to £100 from eBay or one of the other sources. You might assume that buying parts from China would mean long lead times, but that's not necessarily the case. In our particular case, the aircon pulley that we bought from AliExpress on a Monday evening arrived Monday morning, just 1 week later. And that is quicker than some of the parts we buy from the UK or that we get from Mercedes direct. But the real question is whether a cheap price necessarily means cheap quality. Now, if you follow this channel, you'll know that about a week ago we had a horrible clattering sound from this engine, and it transpired that the air compressor pulley had disintegrated. If you go along to Mercedes and try and buy the pulley or just the hub here, they won't sell it to you. You'll end up having to buy a whole new compressor. You can get this part shipped over from Germany for about £54, or you can go along to AliExpress and order one for about £10.79, or by the time you've paid customs, import duty and postage, for about £24 delivered. So in the case of this AC compressor pulley, this is going to cost you about 4 times more getting it from a European supplier as compared to going along to China directly. And my question is this: is there really any difference or much difference between this piece here from a company called Ridex in Germany and this piece here from AliExpress in China? Or does the factory that makes this part here actually ship those parts out to Ridex and they simply rebrand them? Because I suspect that is what happens with many parts. I cannot for one moment imagine that there's 20 factories that make ABC pumps. I imagine there's maybe 1 or 2 that make ABC pumps, send them out to all the distributors, and the distributors brand them. What I do know from talking to the companies directly is that certain parts, take this bearing here, which we were originally going to just replace the bearing. Now this is a PFI bearing, that's an American company, but actually talking to Henderson Bearings, what they've told us that these bearings, or many of the bearings that they supply, are actually manufactured in China and then shipped over to America and boxed over there, and supposedly there's some quality control in America, but fundamentally the parts actually manufactured in China. If you do end up buying one of these pulleys from China or indeed Germany, what you have to do in the first instance is take the hub plate off. It's just wedged in there and ultimately held in with this circlip. The circlip will come separately, and then this should just push on to the hub down there. When you put the new pulley on, the flat side is going to go towards the engine like that, and you're going to have to tap this on gently. Now you may be tempted to put some grease on the inside here, but that is not a good idea because that's a friction fit. And what might be a better idea is to use the old pulley on the outside and tap that just like you would do with the bearing, because this is plastic and you do not want to break it. I was just about to use a little rubber mallet to tap that on, but in actual fact that has gone on far enough to reveal the ridge for the snap ring. So let's see if we can put the snap ring on there. These are our Knipex snap ring pliers here, and you can see that actually the snap ring is still on there since we took it off. What I am going to do is take that snap ring off and orientate it so the holes are this way, because I think it'll be easier to put it on. Wow, this is such a good set of snap ring pliers. You can see that that actually fits right on there, and all I have to do, hopefully that's in the ridge, is just wiggle these out now, and that should be pretty much job done. It's crucially important to make sure that you've seated that snap ring properly. So go in there with a camera and make sure that those two end bits where you had the snap ring pliers are definitely in the groove. When you come to put the hub plate on, you're going to be able to push it on a certain amount, and then you're going to have to wind it on clockwise to get it to sit flush to put the circlip on. So here you can see that that's not, you're not able to push that all the way in. So this will just spin on like so, clockwise, and you can see that this nut is now being revealed. When you have the end of the shaft showing with the 7mm fitting on it, you want to set your ratchet as if you were undoing a nut, and then you can wedge that on there and carry on spinning the pulley, hopefully, like so, and that should continue to tighten the pulley on and pull this hub plate in till eventually you'll be able to get that snap ring on. So that's now on to as far as it will go. We should now be able to put the snap ring on there. The pulley came with a new snap ring, so that's the one we'll be using. And the way to get that snap ring in is to start at the bottom edge there, and then just work your way round and get that top snap ring in there. There we go, and that is job done. So to get the new hub plate on, you do not need the special removal tool. You can actually just wind that on by hand. All you will need is a 7mm socket just to hold the inside of the shaft while you're winding that on. As I mentioned, my original intention was just to replace the bearing, but in actual fact the pulley we bought came with the bearing, so I'm going to be selling that on eBay together with a hub plate as well if anyone needs one. My advice to anyone who owns an R230 or an SL55 or even the MK113 engine is to actually get yourself one of these compressor pulleys before yours actually goes bad, because you should be able to change this in a day. But if you have to wait a week or two for your part to arrive from Germany or China, your car will be out of commission. So my advice, for the sake of 10 or 20 pounds, is to buy one of these today, put it in the back of the car, so if your compressor does go at any stage, you can either do this job yourself or you can simply give it along to a garage with the actual part and get the car back the same day. In the next video, we are going to be changing the water pump on this car, because I noticed when I took the belts off that this is actually loose here. So we've sent the pulley itself off to the powder coaters to get repowder coated, and we've bought a new water pump. Now, once again, rather than going along to Mercedes and spending £450 on a water pump, I've actually gone along to a UK supplier called Quinton Hazel, who sell that pump for about £50 or £60. Now, I've asked them whether they do their own castings, where they get the bearings from, the gaskets, etc. And what they've said is that there's two types of parts you can get. One is OEM and one is OES. And OEM is original equipment manufacturer, and the other OES, which is what this is, equipment supplier. So once again, I may be completely and utterly wrong, and if anybody out there knows a definitive answer, I do not think there are multiple factories around the world casting these. I think there's one or two factories casting these and sending them out to Mercedes and all the other water pump suppliers who simply put their own branding on there. Now, please do correct me if I'm wrong. If you work in one of those factories or you work in one of the pump companies, please tell me that I'm wrong, but I'm going to be putting this on my car, and if it transpires it's no good, either because it's not cast properly, it's not cast flat, or because the bearings wear out, you know, in a few years as opposed to 20 years, then so be it. I'm doing the labor myself, so it won't be a big issue to put another one on. But as I say, you can buy one of these for 50 or 60 pounds, or you can buy one of these for 250 pounds, or you can go along to Mercedes and buy one for 450 pounds. Personally, I think they're all going to do exactly the same job in this particular case. We will also, in the next video, be replacing some of these pulleys, which are not just a little bit rusty, but there is some play in there as well. So I'm going to finish the video here, and just to conclude with my own view on whether it's worth going along to AliExpress and Alibaba and places like that to buy low-cost parts for your Mercedes. Personally, I always contact the OEM manufacturer first, find out what's available and what the price is. And for certain things like belts, gaskets, certain rubber seals, I would always pay a little bit more to get Mercedes parts on this particular car. But in other cases, when it comes to things like the ABC pump, the SBC pump, and some of these pulleys, etc., my gut feeling is they're all manufactured in the same plant and simply rebranded. But if you know better or have different ideas, please just drop me a comment below and let me know what you think.